Are we ready to go? Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Tap,
sir.
tap, tap. Isn't that what they always do? The unprofessional types? Tap, tap, tap. Can you hear this? Before I even start today, I'm going to show you something. This is the November 2014 issue of Men's Health magazine. Now, I read this magazine at least 10 times a year. I don't have a subscription to it, but I do pick it up from the newsstands. It's one of my favorite magazines, but this particular issue really caught my attention, knowing that I was coming here and I was going to be speaking about the title of the message, which is Plant, Trust, Harvest. Are there any gardeners in here? Yeah, I knew there was a few. How many of you, when you plant your garden, go out every day and dig up the seed to make sure that it's growing right? We rarely do that, do we? We trust and allow the season, the soil, and the spirit to raise that plant up for us, don't we? Well, I want you all to take a look at just the picture of the cover, on the cover, I should say, of this young man. He is missing an arm and has a prosthetic leg. Okay, I'm just going to run real quickly just to give you a glance at the picture. Just look at the picture of the person. Okay? Got it? I'm coming back over there for you guys. Hold on. Stay with us. Got the picture? Okay. This young man, his name is Noah Galloway, and he is the 2014 Ultimate Men's Health guy. Okay? Now, doesn't he have a great body? Six-pack and all of that? Well, this young man has a very, very powerful story, and I just want to share it with you very, very quickly. He joined the military, ended up in Iraq, decided he wanted to make the military his career. He loved every bit of it, every last bit of it. So on his second deployment to Iraq, second time, the Humvee he was in, a 10,000 pound or ton or whatever those things weigh, hit a tripwire that had been laid, and the bomb went off and threw this vehicle 100 feet into the air, in this huge vehicle. That's how powerful the blast was. And it landed, fortunately, wheel up in a canal some distance away. And the next thing he remembers was 6 days later, he woke up at Walter Reed Hospital, and he was missing his arm and his leg. And he had had other injuries as well. And of course, to him, when he realized what had happened, his life was over. He was really convinced that was it. His military career was over. He was only half the man he used to be. That was his own thinking. He couldn't be a husband to his wife and a father to his children like he had been before. He was finished. And he bought into that. Okay? And if you looked at him when he was in that condition, you might even agree with him. You might even say, yeah, this guy's through. You know? And this is happening even still all over that part of the world. People are getting their limbs blown off. And it's not just men, women too now. You know, they're in combat just like everybody else. Ending up in these hospitals and waking up, missing body parts, sometimes half of their face. It's rough. And this guy was one of them. So he allowed himself to slip into the state of depression that was so dark he didn't think he was ever going to come out of it. And one day, after allowing himself to fall into this physical disaster of a body and let it get even worse, he realized one day he was allowing the part of him that was missing to dictate what was going on with what was still left. And he had gotten into the habit of smoking and drinking and just laying around feeling sorry for himself. His family didn't know what to do with him. And he finally looked in the mirror and he saw this mess of a human being looking back at him. And he had an epiphany. And he decided he was going to change it. And he figured out a way to get back into the health club. He didn't want anybody to see him trying to work out like this, you know, missing the arm and the leg and allowing himself to get to the mess he had been. So he joined a 24-hour health club, and he started working out at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, so that nobody could see him, right? And he figured out ways to use these machines so that he could take the limbs that were both missing and weak now from having spent so much time sitting around doing nothing. He figured out how to make cups and coils and straps and stuff so he could actually exercise the shoulder of the arm that was missing, of the leg, all the parts of the body that were damaged. And he managed to get himself to the picture you saw on the cover. Okay? So, how do you like that story? Goes along with everything that you guys were all, when you were lighting your candles up here this morning, you're talking about. Okay? It takes a sense of self, preservation, determination, and recognizing that there is a higher place in you, that if you touch that, you can bring yourself back from wherever you are, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay, lovely story, right? Don't you think? Great story, motivational, on and on. And this young man, when he came out of it, he decided that after that, he would be this motivational inspiration for others, because there are all kinds of people coming back from that part of the world and elsewhere, and for other reasons, who have lost limbs and gone through all these traumas. Okay, great, that's a wonderful story. How many of you have ever heard of this, the expression, the law of attraction? Anybody know that? Does anybody in New Thought not know that expression? Ever read any books or taken any classes on abundance and all that stuff, and that particular law has come up? Well, did you know that that law can be summed up in one word? What do you think that word is? Say it out loud.
Attitude.
Anybody else?
Believe.
Haven't heard it yet.
Love.
Still haven't heard it. You don't know as much about it as you thought you did, do you? So what is that one word that will sum up the law of attraction? And if you get this word, and you're going to have it when I'm done with you today, give. That's what attracts. Okay? Now, the principle, like God, is no respecter of persons. When you give, for whatever reason, you automatically implement that law. The Bible put it this way. Jesus said, cast your bread upon the water. Always be open to giving. Now, hearkening back to the story, now that you know that that's the law of attraction in a nutshell, hearkening back to the story, the moment that young man took a look at himself in the mirror, he may not even realize this. I don't know the man, I can't speak for him, but from the story I know what he was doing. The moment he stood up and looked in the mirror and saw what a mess he had created, along with the mess that the explosion had created, and made the decision to change, he began to give himself hope. And at that moment, the law of attraction took over. He began to give himself hope. He began to give himself motivation. He began to give himself the desire and the determination to take what he had allowed himself to become and to become something better, something different, and something beautiful that could touch the world. He may not even know he was doing that, but he was. You don't have to have that intention we're talking about to make the law of attraction work for you, because you can't make the law of attraction work. It's working anyway. It's always working. And the moment you make a decision to give anything, even to yourself, you have brought the law of attraction into power for you and for whatever it is that you're planning on doing with your life and in your world. So he decides, he makes the decision, I am going to be different. I'm not going to allow myself to be depressed anymore. He begins to create value that hadn't been there until he made the decision to do so. To create value for himself and ultimately for all of those that he touches even to this day, to where he ended up being on the cover of that magazine as Men's Health Guy of the Year. Every time we make a decision to give on any level, we invoke the law of attraction. It's always working, but we always step into that stream.